What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here for the UFC Vegas 13 recap, of course, where Glover Teixeira once again defied Father Time. 41 years of age, he put on a stellar performance against Thiago Santos, who didn't look bad himself. He almost got the job done himself, but Glover Teixeira, boy oh boy, did he show his toughness and his skill level. We were going into this one, questioning his age, and we can't do that anymore. 41 years of age on a five-fight win streak, beating, an absolute stud like Thiago Santos, who, many thought had beaten John Jones. And, we look back at the resumes of these two, but John Jones has a very impressive winner, the Glover Teixeira, and you're probably looking at a fight, 2014, 2015 when it happened, or maybe even sooner than that, 2013 even. And you're probably thinking, Glover Teixeira hasn't got long left. He's been in the roster of the UFC for a long while now, but, he's rejuvenated himself in probably the past 3-4 years, perhaps, when he's on this huge five-fight win streak. Since he beat Carl Robertson at the beginning of 2019, he's been on an absolute tear, and he's rightfully put himself into that number one title contender spot once again. And there's not much you can say about it. His performance on Saturday night was phenomenal. He got rocked, and it gave me shades of Thiago Santos versus Jimmy Manuel. And Jimmy Manuel is an absolute gangster, and he decided to stand there and try and bang with Thiago Santos. It didn't quite work with him. Obviously, Jimmy Manuel had a couple of knockouts prior to that bout, so maybe his chin wasn't at the strength it once was, and maybe that's why Thiago Santos, got to finish that night. But it could have gone either way. Both of them were ducking and diving, throwing absolute bombs at each other, and Glover Teixeira just ate them on the night. He just ate them. There's a couple where he got rocked, but again, he had the experience and wherewithal about him to. Once he felt a little rocked, or he was dazing out of the fight, he would go for the takedown, and there's nothing Thiago Santos could do about it. Obviously, I'd imagine Thiago Santos drilled, all aspects of Glover Teixeira's game. He would have come in there with a game plan, whether it was to maybe come in there and get him finished quick, because that was what was on the agenda. It looked like, as a viewer, it looked like Thiago Santos' game plan at the beginning of the rounds was go in there, blitz him, and get out as quickly as possible. Obviously, this being his first fight back since those surgeries and those injuries that he got from that John Jones fight. But Thiago Santos, we know how good he is. Former welterweight, come up to the middleweight and then up to light heavyweight. But yeah, it's hard not to. There's a bit of a love story going on with Glover Teixeira at the moment, and there's a feel-good factor. We saw Jan Blachowicz become the light heavyweight champion at 37 years of age, and there was many of him 3-4 years ago going, oh, he's past it. He's not in his prime, and he's almost not good enough to be in the UFC. There was those conversations going, maybe it's time for him to move aside or move to a different organization. And the same was going for Glover Teixeira. But yes, Teixeira this weekend put an absolute beat down on Thiago Santos. And that first round, Glover came out, put the beating Thiago came out, threw hammers. His nickname Moretta, and he threw sledgehammers, as Glover Teixeira was saying in that first round. But Teixeira weathered the storm, dropped him down in that first round, controlled it, won the rest of the round. Second round, he came out, dominated that as well. Almost got the submission in there just before the buzzer even, and then he came out in the third and got it done for good. And you're thinking, boy, we've got a new number one contender on our hand, and it throws a little bit of a spanner in the works. We'll have a look at the statistics in a moment, and of course the light heavyweight division as a whole. But obviously, last week before this event, it came out that Dana White confirmed that we'd be seeing Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya for the light heavyweight title coming in April time when Jan is returning, of course. But it does throw a big spanner in the works. You're looking at this going, Glover deserves that shot before as Adesanya. Now, in the business sense, you can't measure Adesanya and Glover Teixeira's numbers. Obviously, Adesanya is new. He's become a megastar. He's very fresh. Whereas Glover Teixeira is a veteran. He's someone that is a staple of the UFC. When you look down the heritage and you see the resilience that Glover Teixeira is a part of that group and a part of that elite club where he's going to be going down as a Hall of Famer nonetheless, whether he gets the title or not. But Adesanya's got time in his hands. Glover Teixeira hasn't. 41 years of age. When he fights for the title, he could be looking at 42. Depending on when it happens. If it happens before I think his birthday is August, September, isn't it? Let's have a look. His record is actually October, so it was just last week. So, he's got 12 months before he, that 42nd birthday, when you're thinking, has he missed the boat here? And you don't want to see him you don't want to see him going for a title at 42, 43, having sat out a year waiting for that opportunity. He deserves it. And maybe put Adesanya Whittaker 2 on in March, February, because both of them are ready for that point, I believe, anyway. You put that bout on, you let Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira go at it for the light heavyweight title. And then Adesanya can come in. But for me, we'll have a quick look at the statistics, of course, and you see the output between the pair of them. Look at Teixeira, 41 years of age, throwing 180 punches, landed 148 of them. 46 of those 63 that were thrown were significant, of course, and 4 out of 7 takedowns in just, 11 minutes, 12 minutes work. So he was phenomenal on the night. And it's almost a shame that he didn't quite get that 50K bonus. Obviously, there was a lot of performances along that were fantastic as well and deserved that 50K bonus. But the work Glover put in deserved that a little bit extra than just a number 1 contender spot that will come out in the rankings tomorrow. Now we will look at the light heavyweight rankings. Of course, as we mentioned, Thiago Santos was number 1 going into this, as Glover Teixeira was number 3. But you'd expect those to flip. I don't imagine, Thiago Santos going down to 3. I'd imagine Dominic Reyes comes down, Thiago Santos moves down 1, and Glover Teixeira just fits nicely into that spot. And we get Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira booked ASAP. But you look at that light heavyweight division since John Jones has gone, it's become very open. It's become one that's exciting again. You look at Alexander Rakic, Yuri Prochaska, Volkan Ozdemir. Anthony Smith is on a bit of a downer at the moment. Unfortunately, Johnny Walker has returned to winning ways against Ryan Spann, so he's on the up again. And of course, with SBG, we know what John Kavanagh can do to a fighter. So if Johnny Walker's, if he can beat Anthony Smith and Nikita Krylov or Ozdemir, he's right in that title mix too. And you can't just discredit Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos, etc. Even though they just lost or coming off the back of losses, they're still the elite of that division and still will probably be fighting for a title within 12 months with another win or two. Now, someone another 41 years of age fighter, obviously in the heavyweight division, coming out in the co-main event, showing off his wisdom and his experience inside the cage, was Andrei Arlovski. He came back, and not in quite the same fashion as Glover Teixeira. He put on a very stellar performance, a very smart performance against a very young Tanner Boser, who came into this fight off the back of some impressive finishes and knockout wins. That one against Philippe Lin comes to mind instantly. But, Andrei Arlovski, 41 years of age, the Pitbull, it wasn't the most... it wasn't the best paced fight. I think for a co-main event, it was a bit dull, with all due respect. But these two know the game inside out, and you do get that with heavyweight. Sometimes it's 5 minutes of madness, other times it's 15 minutes of a bit of a snooze fest. And you're watching it at 4 or 5 in the morning, and it's doing the UK, and you're thinking, come on, someone throw a punch and land that knockout blow. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. This is sport; it isn't scripted. And Arlovski is looking very, very good again. He's looking like the old Arlovski. And I saw Dana White's interview with Laura Sanko today, saying that his chin looks like it's got better, because obviously he went on a little streak of getting knockouts or being knocked out. Rosenstruck, you're looking at there, knocked him out pretty convincingly. But he's come back, put 2 wins in a row on his resume. And now, of course, he's not probably going to go on any runs back to the heavyweight title, but he's someone there that, the next guy coming up almost, who's around that 25 to 20 mark in the rankings, you can put him up against and know you're going to get a good showing from him. A bit like Donald Cerrone in the welterweight division. You're going to get a good showing from him. But yes, the heavyweight division, you know my thoughts on the heavyweight division. I think we should open up 2 more divisions either side. Of the heavyweight champion at Stipe, who's 238, 240 when he fought DC. If we can get one at 220 and one at 260, I think we're cooking and gas there. But yes, Andrei Arlovski, Tanner Boser, not fight of the year by any stretch, but a good bout and a good learning experience, I'd imagine, from Tanner Boser. He'd had some very quick wins in his last 2 fights, and going 15 minutes with that Andrei Arlovski at 29 years of age isn't going to harm his career at all. Now, Now, I did say, I think in the preview, this fight could be at least a performance of the night worthy bout between these two, but Hayoni Barcelos versus Khalil Taha, from Germany. I did say quite naively, that he was an unknown entity coming into this. He'd been around the organizations and the smaller promotions a little bit more, and this was his UFC debut, and he put on a very, very good showing of himself. He didn't get the win. Hayoni Barcelos returned, added to that impressive win streak that he's on. Being Said the Magomedov at the end of last year, he's come back after 11 months out, and he's put on a very good performance, and it was rightfully fight of the night. Two very high-paced fights, and you'll see the stats in a minute. But when you got that compared to the co-main event, you're looking, it's very chalk and cheese. You can imagine, Barcelos would have been that fight would have been the perfect co-main event to set up the light heavyweight bout. But it doesn't always work like that. But let's look at the statistics, of course. Barcelos, 129 out of 219 strikes landed, 120 of them, 129 that landed were significant, and 2 out of 4 takedowns, 50% conversion rate, of course, for him. The pacing on it was phenomenal. You see Taha there, 68 strikes out of 222 and 49 out of 202. So it was a very decisive win for Barcelos, and it was right that it was a 30-27. But nonetheless, a fantastic fight between the two, and one that you can add on to the highlight reel for Barcelos. You see him go in for that uppercut, that right uppercut, and that right overhand is more favoured weapons. But that bantamweight division is so good. I think it's the strongest division that we've got in the UFC at the moment. When I was talking in the group chat with the lads, and it's like, if you go from the champion down to number 15, there's so many matchups there that you can't predict. Chita Vera, and I think Dominic Cruz mentioned this on the broadcast. Chita Vera is number 15 in that bantamweight division, and you can put him up against Cody Garbrandt as number 4 in that division and have a fantastic fight. You can put him up against the likes of Sandhagen, Frankie Edgar, Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, all these big names that you got up there. TJ Dillashaw's coming back, of course, in a couple months now. His 2-year suspension's flown by, so he'll be returning probably into a title shot perhaps, or at least one more bout, maybe with a Cody Garbrandt or something like that, just to get him in there, and then he wins that and then goes on to his title shot and tries to regain the gold that he once owned. But boy, these two obviously were unranked on the night, but they put in such a stellar performance that you could expect, maybe Barcelos to have a number next to his name come Tuesday morning when the rankings are out, or at least it could be very close. It could be in that top 20 for sure. And, you look at the likes of Sean O'Malley's unranked as well. It's the best division in the sport at the moment, and I don't see one that comes close. Maybe lightweight in the UFC comes close, but again, in the group chat to mention that, I was like, if you go from 4 to 15. And you put that matchup, it's Conor McGregor versus Cowboy. And that bout only lasted 40 seconds, with all due respect to Cowboy. So I wouldn't be putting any money in Garbrandt and Chita Vera to be done within inside 40 seconds or a minute. I'd expect that to be a 3-round war, perhaps, depending on what Cody Garbrandt steps into that cage that night. Obviously, if he wants to brawl, Chita Vera might get the best of him inside 2 rounds. But yes, bantamweight division is absolutely on fire at the moment. I'm glad that Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling's on in December. We get to move on with that division, and 2021 is going to be an absolute blitz of the year for the bantamweight division. Now we move on to the women's strawweight division. Of course, it was a great performance again from Yan and Xiaonan, of course, from China. And many people think she's ready for a title shot against Weili Zhang, obviously a countrywoman. These two on a tear up in the UFC, and we was talking about on Saturday night before the fights that kicked off. The fact that we've got a UFC PI in Shanghai, the fact that we've been over there, with Gastelum and Bisping fighting 2017. We've been there a couple of times now. Frankie Edgar, I believe, was over there as well. I believe, but it might have been at least in Oriental Asia, of course, in that climate, in that culture as well. We're seeing a lot more stars come over. Sonya Dong, Jiangling Li, of course, and of course the women, in the strawweights are at the top of the division and at the top of the sport in that area of the globe. But Claudia Gadelha is no mug, and she had a good first round. I think Yan did win that first round just because at the bottom she reminded me a bit of Tony Ferguson with the elbows from the bottom. Did some big damage to Claudia Gadelha, messed up her her forehead a little bit, and then she dominated the second round, and the third round was again a bit of a 50-50, but I did think Jan won it fair and square. We'll take a look at the statistics. Of course, 84 strikes there out of the 149 for Claudia Gadelha. 36 out of 96 significant. 2 out of 10 takedowns, so you can see where her game plan was, but it didn't quite work. Jan was very good in the clinch. Great knees, great elbows. Not letting off the pressure off the steam when she was up against the cage. She was making Claudia Gadelha work, and it didn't quite work out for her. And you can see that with a 20% conversion rate of takedowns. But 133 strikes there for Jan, and 74 significant strikes landed there for Jan as well. But for me, we'll have a look at the strawweight rankings now. If I'm a matchmaker there, you're looking at Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas for the title, a former champion up against a champion. Obviously, Rose Namajunas has got an injury at the moment. It's going to be interesting when she's back. If she's back in March, by that time, Weili Zhang wouldn't have thought in a year. You got Yoni and Jacek coming out saying that she's probably not going to fight without a crowd in the audience. So she could be out for another 3-4 months until we get a full capacity stadium. I'd do her versus Tatiana Suarez, because Tatiana Suarez would have been out for about 2 years at that point, so she's going to need a fresh bout. She's going to need someone who's in that top 5 as well, with her being at number 3, undefeated, of course. And Yoni and Jacek is the perfect sort of stylistic test for Tatiana Suarez, someone who's a heavy wrestler versus someone with an elite Muay Thai striking background, maybe not in her prime anymore, but still someone who went 5 rounds with the champion in Weili Zhang, and still is someone that's very creditable in the strawweight division. And for me, Yang Xiaonan, of course, would take over that 4th place spot for Claudia Gadelha. And I think you put up against Carla Esparza, again, a strong wrestler in Carla Esparza, a former and the inaugural strawweight champion, of course. And then you look at, you've got Amanda Ribas versus Michelle Waterson coming up next month. Those two, whoever wins out of that one probably gets Claudia Gadelha maybe. Or you're looking at, Yoni and Jacek. Then you're looking at, if Amanda Ribas wins and beats Michelle Waterson, maybe you see Ribas versus Yang Xiaonan, of course. But those two are two highly touted prospects, so you probably wouldn't want to match them up just yet. And both of those are going to be looking for title shots come 2021. I think Yang probably gets it first. But, Ribas, if she puts 2 very good performances on 2 quick wins for her in Michelle Waterson, and if she comes back, say, February, March, she could be fighting for the title before Yang Xiaonan. And obviously, we've got Tecia Torres and Angela Hill on December 5th, I believe, or at UFC 255. So, fantastic division in the strawweight, and you've got some fantastic contenders in there. But, we can't miss out Marina Rodriguez. We look at the rankings as well. She's on a win, I believe. So, yes, the women's strawweight did perform fantastic. And, the women's strawweight division, very strong. We look at the bantamweight and the featherweight division in the women's side of the game as one that's weak, and you can see maybe even the bantamweight's slightly weaker now. We've got a dominant champion across those 3 divisions, and you see the strawweight division. Maybe we see a dominant champion in Weili Zhang, but again, maybe it flips it on its head, and we see some changes of the guard perhaps in that strawweight division. We've got some killers coming up. You've got Corey McKenna coming up as well from Cage Warriors. She's making her debut this weekend. But yeah, I think it's a good place. But we move on to the Georgian side of the world. We mentioned the phenomenal rise in Georgian MMA, and we saw that at its peak this weekend at Giga Chikadze, of course, against Jamie Simmons. Only 8 strikes landed, but boy, what a knockout he got on the weekend. 0 takedowns out of the 4 attempts from the 2 of them. But this fight didn't quite go the distance. But again, Giga Chikadze putting on an absolute stellar performance for the Georgian fans, and he's making a good name for himself in that featherweight division, I believe he's in. And he's one of those just on the edges of that top 15 now for the featherweights, and a win or 2 will certainly put him in there. Now, of course, we can't get past the probably most disturbing images that we saw this weekend. Obviously, we saw Max Griffin up against Ramiz Brahima, of course, and that ear injury that he suffered was one of the most gruesome things we've seen in this sport for a long time. The elbow to the ear, obviously, with Ramiz being a strong wrestler, someone who's trained that a long time, you've got the cauliflower ear, and that burst open, and his ear was ripped off, almost Evander Holyfield style. Not quite with the bite, but that elbow definitely had some power in it, and you could see the reaction from Max Griffin. Remy's probably in shock, and that adrenaline that's still going in the fight didn't react too sort of serious to it. He was almost thin, and I can imagine in that point full of disappointment because that fight should have been called off and he's just got lost. Probably something that he probably would have carried on fighting in the nature of fight as well. But yes, Max Griffin put on a gruesome performance, one that we would have expected on the card before with it being Halloween. But yeah, a very good performance. Trevin Giles again put on a fantastic win in a third round TKO when Alexander Romanov again storming his opponent with that forearm choke. Something we don't see too often in the UFC and MMA as a whole, but again, a very effective choke and effective win for him. He's someone who's going to be a problem in that heavyweight division, of course. And Darren Elkins got a good win, and Gustavo Lopez both got good wins on the night. But we move on to some of the news that happened over the weekend. Of course, kick it off with, of course, Darren Till pulled out against Jack Hermansson. He has re-injured, aggravated his knee injury that he got against Robert Whittaker, and he's had to pull out of that fight. That means someone has to take the opportunity, and that man is Kevin Holland. And he did a phenomenal year, and he deserves the credit that he's getting. And the reward that he's getting on December 5th fighting someone like Jack Hermansson, I guess you could say it's a bit of a reward because he's still going to get, getting punched in the face. I don't know how much of a reward that is, but for the hard work he's in, 4-0 this year, he's put in a phenomenal shift and he's shown the benefits of what COVID-19 has done. And he's been in and out of the cage. He thought in May, then he came back August, September, October. So he's fighting pretty much once a month. And it's only in November that he's not going to be fighting, but he's got a main event slot now on short notice. But Kevin Holland's game as they come, and if he beats Jack Hermansson, then he's right in that title mix. We see him. He's not thought the biggest in names or that talent that pushes you into the top 15, but the wins he's got, beating Darren Stewart, those are good, very solid wins. And if he wins, beats Jack Hermansson, becomes, I think he's probably nailed on for fight of the year. I think Izzy Adesanya having 2 title defenses against Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa's up there. There's some Figueiredo if he beats Perez, a champion with two wins this year, obviously, or 3 wins, should we say. Obviously he didn't make weight for that first Benavidez fight. 1, didn't become champion. Obviously the rematch he made weight, 1, convincingly became champion, and he's going to be set to make his first defense. Petr Yan maybe beat Aldo. He makes a very successful, good defense of his title against Aljamain Sterling. Maybe he gets a shout. And obviously you can't, overlook Khamzat Chimaev, who's fought 3 times this year, 3-0, becomes 4-0. But let's say Khamzat Chimaev beats Leon Edwards and Kevin Holland beats Jack Hermansson. I think you just have to edge it to Kevin Holland because of the consistency of being 5-0. It outweighs the 4-0, albeit Khamzat Chimaev is someone who does bring in, an absolute storm. And, all eyes are on Khamzat Chimaev at the moment. And he's doing it across 2 weight classes. The fight of the year is a debate that's still very much open again. Was watching DC and Hawani before the fight. And yeah, I think there's some good names up there. But I do think it's strange how open it is that we've got 2 months left of the year. And we don't know who fight of the year is yet. Obviously, in the women's side, although maybe that's changed now, you could say Amanda Nunes, perhaps. But Amanda Nunes has pulled out again due to injury. We had a very busy Monday. Amanda Nunes pulled out against Megan Anderson. That was meant to be at UFC 256, of course. Unfortunately, I feel sorry for Megan Anderson. I do feel sorry for Megan Anderson. She deserved that title shot, and I think she's the biggest loser here. Obviously, it looks like they're going to be rescheduling that date, but it's interesting what they're going to do for 256. Now, obviously, that is the card with Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling, so they've got a title shot on there ready and waiting, so that's probably going to be promoted to the main event, whether they want to try and rebook some of the fights that we've not had before. I think it's a stellar card anyway. I saw, I think Jacare and Marvin Vittori on that card, Junior Dos Santos, Cyril Garner, so it's a strong card nonetheless. Amanda Rivas fighting on that card, of course. So the loss of Amanda Nunes, obviously, in sales is big, but the strength of the card isn't weakened too much. And of course, the biggest news of the day was Kayla Harrison. She's going to make her featherweight debut, not in PFL, but in Invicta UFC. She's not left PFL, but of course, PFL suspended their season this year with what happened at COVID, which probably on reflection was a bad decision for them. But I'd imagine it's a strong business decision when you're giving a $4 or $5 million away on New Year's Eve at the end of the year. You're going to need that gate receipt and that revenue from fans coming to the stadium that they wouldn't have got. So it has impacted them a lot, but Invicta's given them the opportunity on UFC Fight Pass. Of course, has opened up a couple of questions. She's promised them, as far as we know, that she's going to return to PFL in April. But a good train from Invicta at featherweight, it opens up a lot of questions. Whether you look at Bellator and you go, give it to Cyborg, Julia Budd, or you look at UFC promoting, obviously with her being on Invicta, you'd imagine a part of the UFC more than to Bellator just because it's on the same network as UFC Fight Pass. Of course, PFL's on ESPN already, so fighting for those two organizations makes a lot of sense going to the UFC. And then you've got Nunes, you've got Felicia Spencer, and needs to fight very soon, and you've got Megan Anderson. So it would be a very much needed boost to that featherweight division for the UFC, and having someone like Kayla Harrison, an Olympian, gold medal Olympian, as well in judoka, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for her. And if she gets a good win, I believe she's facing Courtney King on November 20th on my birthday, so it could be a fantastic way to spend a birthday watching fights, of course. And yeah, it does open up the field a bit with PFL opening up their fighters to different organizations. Obviously, we've got Cage Wars, the Trilogy Strikes Back, and it'd be interesting as a UK fan if Brendan Lock names on that card on December 12th. We've had announcements today. Matt Inman's returning after 3 years out of the cage. Obviously, he was tutoring and is tutoring SBG Manchester, where you got Levi Steedman or Levi Steed. You got obviously Jack Cartwright, bantamweight champion. You got George Smith, and it's kind of ironic and funny that Matt Inman is coming in to face the opponent that beat George Smith at the last Trilogy then in September, in Matthew Bonner, of course, and he's almost coming back to get a vengeance for his student losing that fight. So that's going to be interesting, of course. Dlamines is coming back, of course, but it would be a nice surprise to see Brendan Loughnane on that card, wouldn't it? Especially for Manchester, for the UK. Obviously, he was meant to be, on that path to that $1 million prize money with Lance Palmer, who's probably going to be looking for, pastures new for another fight this year. Obviously, Kayla Harrison is their number one star at PFL, their poster and stablehold of that promotion. So now the fact that she's got a fight elsewhere, it does open it up for everyone else. Rory McDonald even signed to PFL this year, was looking to probably get in that welterweight Grand Prix, probably a favourite in there, and he's lost a pivotal part of his career. He's someone who, hasn't got a year to waste. None of these guys have got a year to waste, but Rory McDonald, late 30s, maybe come towards the end of this game, would have been expecting to fight 3, 4, 5 times this year. And he hasn't got that, so maybe he could fight 1 year. Maybe if he can go back to Bellator, maybe he's got a good relationship with them for one fight and then come back to PFL in April. Who knows? But yeah, the contract situation there is a bad one. But it does make things exciting for us, and it helped out a busy Monday in MMA, as it always is. We always get an event, and literally on that Monday everything goes wrong. And obviously, the biggest news was Islam Makhachev putting out the fight this weekend into Rafael dos Anjos, and it looks like maybe Michael Chandler might be favourite. For a while, it looked like it was Santiago Ponzinibbio in the welterweight division. And I mentioned in the group chat, not to go on that too much, but it seems like everyone that asked to fight Leon Edwards, with all due respect to Leon Edwards, is going to be fighting before him. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is going to be facing Jeff Neal, and obviously Ponzinibbio put his hand up for that fight, and it looks like he could have been fighting Rafael dos Anjos. Unfortunately, that's not the way it goes. And I'm not glad for Makhachev, of course, his first, main event in the UFC with a retired Khabib. There was a bit of romance to that fight, and the fact that he's almost the next Khabib. He's the partner of the god for that gym and that legacy. And to face a former champion, Rafael dos Anjos, would have been huge for him. And obviously, this was the second time that fight had been booked. So, yeah, sad time for that one, but we move. And, we've had 3 fights being altered in the space of 3 or 4 days. But yes, I'm going to leave that one there, guys. Make sure to hit subscribe on the CageChat YouTube channel or on the CageChat Facebook. We're almost at 2K now, so if you enjoyed the content, make sure to hit that follow button, and we'll see you guys on the next video.